Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, regular Township Council meeting on March 17th, 2015.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Law by filing the notice in the office of the Township Clerk and by posting the meeting notice on the bulletin board at the Municipal Building on January 8, 2015, where it has remained posted since that date. A legal notice appeared in the Daily Record on January 12, 2015, and in the Star Ledger on January 14, 2015, and was voted by fax to other local newspapers and local radio stations on January 8, 2015. Note, council meetings are videotaped and aired on Cablevision Public Access Channel 21 at 11 o'clock a.m. on Sundays and are also available for viewing at www.parsippany.net.
Please rise for the flag salute. Caluso, if you would.
Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. DePiero.
Here.
Mr. Paluso.
Present.
Mr. Stanton.
Here.
Mr. Valori.
Present.
Council President Karifi.
Here. Also present, Mayor James R. Barberio, L&M Sandman, Business Administrator, Paula Cosarelli, Assistant Business Administrator, John Inglesino, Esquire, Township Attorney, Yancy Wazermas, Township Clerk, Ann M. Cucci, CFO. Upcoming meetings, April 14th, 2015 at 7:30 p.m. Agenda meeting, April 21st, 2015, 7:30 p.m. Regular meeting. Bids to be taken, none. Requests for quotations, proposals, qualifications, none. Ordinances for second reading and public hearing. Mr. DePiero?
Ordinance number 2015:02. An ordinance of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending ordinance 2014:28, authorizing the sale of leasehold rights in Block 420, Lot 1, and in the municipal right-of-way along Grange Road adjacent to Interstate 80. The notice for the ordinance above was published in the Daily Record, the official newspaper of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, on February 27, 2015. Motion to accept the ordinance.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Mr. Stanton. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? At this time, entertain a motion to open up the public hearing on this ordinance and this ordinance only.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Mr. Valori. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, see no one come forward. Entertain a motion to close the public hearing on this ordinance.
Motion.
Motion made by Mr.
Second.
Paluso, seconded by Mr. DePiero. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Whereas the above ordinance was read in title on second reading and the hearing held thereon, now therefore be it resolved that said ordinance be passed on final reading and a notice of final passage of said ordinance be published in the newspaper according to law.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Mr. Stanton. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Mr. Paluso.
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes.
Mr. Valori.
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. At this time, before we move on to the public hearing, I would just like to address a letter that I believe was sent to all of us by a resident, Mr. Dalsky, about the pipeline. And it's in reference to Chatham and how their council wrote an additional letter. They are also opposed to the pipeline, and they wrote a letter urging PSE&G not to change their position on allowing the proposed Pilgrim pipeline to use their rights of way. I would like to make a motion that we do the same.
Second.
Motion made by myself, seconded by Mr. Paluso.
I'm embarrassed we didn't take a leadership role in that because we were the first township to draft a resolution opposing that pipeline.
That's right, we were.
Yes, we
First
were.
in the state of New Jersey.
Yes. So, roll call?
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Mr. Paluso.
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes.
Mr. Valori.
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. Okay. All right. At this time, entertain a motion to open up the public hearing.
Motion.
Motion made by Mr. Paluso, seconded by Mr. Stanton. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Mr. Paluso?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes.
Mr. Valori?
Yes.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes. You'll be given 5 minutes. Please state your name and your address and sign in.
Oh, that's all right. It doesn't matter.
Same
You
here.
too.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, Roy.
Is the mic on?
The mic.
Hang on a couple of times.
First thing I'd like to read tonight, I was going to just send this memo to Mr. John Inglesino, but second thought it was best I just read it into the record. Today's date, year reference regarding year 2014 1099. I sincerely hope that you find this suggestion to be in the best interest. Have your bookkeeping department prepare an accounting of the aforementioned 1099s. For example, amount for 1099, less expenses paid by your firm to other outside contractors, etc. Will give us the net legal labor services. I'm sure this can be done quickly and with accountability. You need to do it for tax return purposes anyway. Doing this would show the taxpayers what your firm made. Just an additional suggestion, if I was you, each month, starting with January 2015, I would break down the monthly invoice, as I stated earlier. That's it. Give a copy to Nancy and John can have it. I want to bring up some stuff that, you know how things happen in this town. I called up a couple people to tell them about the vegetable gardening contest. I didn't get a favorable response on what's going on over at Woodbury Gardens. For some reason, I guess it has to do with Parks and Forestry or DPW. You know, somebody told me to put down wood chips. A lady and this other man I spoke to had no vegetables last year. She took a sample of the soil, sent it to Rutgers, and it came back had too much nitrogen, which is caused by the wood chips. Just letting you know. I mean, you know, I like to give you information as I find about it in town. The next thing is quite disturbing to me. And I don't need to read this. I can just give it to you guys and pass it down. I didn't have the time to make copies. It's regarding 12 Tarn. It definitely is a boarding house. And if you see, I don't know what this gentleman's title is now, but he works half in housing, half in zoning. And so the public, more than happy to look at this tonight. Anybody wants to tap me on the shoulder? Is he went in there, saw door locks, saw refrigerators, hot plates. The owner came into the building here, or his office, wherever that is. Make a long story short, this inspector, our inspector, went back there, and everything was taken out. The locks, the hot plates, the microwaves, the refrigerators, what have you. And they said, okay, your house is in compliance now. I mean, I'm not trying to be a wise guy. It would be like me robbing a bank tonight, and then going back to this officer back there after I know they're on my tail, because they got my photograph. And I say, oh, here's the money back, don't prosecute. I don't understand what's going on. The next part, because I went around the neighborhood with David Visite on Sunday, getting signatures for him. And I went to Old Fox Hill Road, which happens to be the gentleman's name I've been bringing up at these meetings. Boarding house across the street is disgusting. Garbage piled up, plastic bags in the snowbanks. Nobody should have to see this. And then down the street, you're looking at this house, which is 160 Old Fox Hill Road. You go down to, I forget the exact address, but looking at the house at the street, go down to, there are 8 cars in the driveway. And the house isn't that big, it's a small cape. Tons of people living in the house. So, I mean, that's all I have to say here. It's just absurd. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Read that. Can you pass that? Pass that down for us. Read. Or Roy can. Oh.
Yeah, sometimes, take the mic out.
You can take it out if you want.
Make sure it comes back.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Thomas.
Good evening, sir.
Thomas Fullcourt, ULCO. I'm here to Mr. Barberio, how come every issue I have with you, you put me in the back burner? You blow me off. Why is that? Can you tell me that? Why?
Well, you have 5 minutes to speak. I'm going to let you finish. I'm going to answer you when you're done with your 5 minutes. That's how it works.
That's how it works?
Yeah, Council President
Blow me
tell you.
off like that and blow me
No, no, I will answer your question. If you're done speaking, then I will answer.
Answer the question.
I have to wait for your 5 minutes to be up. That's my point.
Are you, no, sir, is that your only question? Is that your only question? He's going to wait until you've,
The question, why is he blowing me off every issue I have?
yes. No, I'm just saying, is that your only question? He's going to wait, he didn't know if you had any further questions, or is that your only one?
No, that was my question to him.
Okay.
Why are you blowing me off?
Okay, I'm going to answer your question now. First and foremost, that is absolutely not true. I met you back in 2010 when I first became the mayor. Had you in my office on several issues to do with situations that you complained about. That's number one. So I've never blown you off. I've had you in my office approximately maybe a month ago. I'm not quite sure. We went over a situation with two of your neighbors, which I don't really want to speak at a council meeting. And we had, our housing went down, they did inspections, and they came back with reports, and you and I went over the reports. So to sit here and say I didn't get back to you is untrue, and you know that, Mr. Fulco. We met in my office several times with regards to this. Prior to that meeting, we met prior to that. Then I sent you downstairs to the head of our director of planning and zoning, and you met with that individual as well.
Jennifer.
Yes, you met with Jennifer. Then you met with Michael Regier. Then you met with Everett. So you have not been pushed off. So I answered your question.
Well, I don't believe you answered.
Sir, just step into the, speak into the mic.
I don't believe that you answered the whole question correctly, in my opinion. You blew me off. There's nothing done about this article. I'm sorry, about this ordinance. Ordinance.
He showed me this ordinance, and there's a discrepancy with the ordinance with regards to what his opinion is of the ordinance, and with the ordinance interpreted by our Director of Zoning and Planning. He's received many answers, and he's just not receiving the answer that he likes. And that's really what it comes down to, Mr. Fulco. So, don't first, no one's blowing you off. I'm giving you the answers. I even showed you the folder that I had that was given to me.
That's an answer. How come nothing has been done by it?
Because you know for a fact what was said in that letter when they went out and inspected. It just wasn't what you wanted to hear. That's the difference.
Who came out and inspected it?
You know who came out and inspected?
Remember who were?
Mr. Fulco. You know who it was. You just named their names. Mr. Fulco, I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. I've been calling you Fulco since 2010. Fulco. So to sit here and say I haven't met with you, that's not true. I met with you on so many occasions. To actually say I blow you off is so incorrect and really is not truthful. Not only did I have you in my office with another situation, I used taxpayers' dollars. I had the township attorney come in to do the research on certain properties which you had in question, and you finally agreed. So to sit here and say I have not met with you is not true.
Mr. Barberio, you and Ken Lucino, you remember you recall the time that we were in
So, yeah, but you're saying
4 years ago?
But wait a minute. You just said I don't meet with you. I blow you off. I met with you on 4 occasions, if not maybe more. Out in the hallway when our BA was there. And I made an appointment with you.
Yes, you did. And you know what? You blew me away. You know why you
No one blew you away. You just didn't like the answers.
The reason why you blew me off, there was nothing on record.
Yes, there was on
There was
record.
nothing on record. There was nobody there to take notes except you and Mr. Inglesino.
Oh, no, this
Sir,
was
30 seconds, sir, 30 seconds.
Okay, when he's done with his 30 seconds, I'm going to go.
Let me finish. At that point, our first meeting 3 years ago, both of you, Mr. Inglesino and you, lied to me over
No.
the search of this piece of certain property.
Nobody lied to you.
You said to me, we told you all along, and you never even made a phone call for me. Not only did you say to me,
Well, I didn't. I had you in my office.
you never even made a phone call. You have a history of that calling me back.
Is that done?
Sir, time's up.
Okay, now I'm going to
You have a
respond.
history of that calling
First and foremost, Mr. Foucault, you're being so disingenuous. That is not true. You got your answers in my office. Once again, the answer that you received you didn't like, and I apologize for that. And this recently, you've had several complaints about your neighbors, and those questions were answered. No, we're not talking. You're saying we're talking about everything. You're saying I blow you off. No, I've had you in my office so many times, Mr. Foucault, and you know that.
Yes, absolutely.
So don't sit here and say
Sir,
I
your
put
time.
you off.
Sir, your
That is
time's
not
up.
true.
Sir, your time's up. Time's up. Your 5 minutes is up.
Okay.
Just throw it on the table.
That's good.
That's fine, just like that. That's good. Yeah, no, that's good. Yep.
Well, thank you very much for agreeing to send a letter to the CAG as Janet.
Just state your name and address.
Oh, Van Dalsky, 21 Newfield Drive. Sorry. So thank you very much for doing that. That was half of my reason for coming tonight. The second thing is I also sent some of you an email indicating that several people from the Coalition Against the Pipeline have gone to the freeholders meeting this past Wednesday and had spoken, and they, I believe, are going to put the resolution against the pipeline up for a vote on the 25th, which is their next meeting. And we've asked all the residents in Morris County that we've been able to get to please contact the freeholders and ask them to oppose the pipeline. And I'm asking you as well, if you can reach out to the freeholders, email, voice, text, any way you communicate with them, and also ask them to please oppose the pipeline. There are 10 townships or municipalities in Morris County that voted, as you did, to oppose the pipeline. It's about time the freeholders paid attention to what their constituents are doing and supported them. Just as a second thought, though, not a second thought, but just as an addendum to the whole PSCG issue, I've heard some people say that because PSCG told Pilgrim that they could not use the right-of-way, that this whole thing is dead and that the pipeline deal is not going to go through. I have heard nothing like that. If anything, we haven't seen any changes in Pilgrim's attitude. And my guess, and that's all, this is just my personal guess, is to force them to try and acquire the power of eminent domain, either by going to a judge under the statute or going to the BPU. So this is not over by any stretch of the imagination. And we just have to watch, and I will certainly keep you apprised as I hear things in the future. So I just wanted you to know that. So thank you very much again, and if you could contact us, they want to hear something else other than being roasted about the solar energy disaster. I was there last Wednesday. It was like watching them like on a slow stick, being roasted alive. Anything else, I'm sure they're happy to talk to you about. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Dolsky, I'd just like to say I received your email, and I really appreciate your concerns about that. And being a concerned taxpayer, I did call several of the freeholders already, and I told them that, I would oppose it as well. I don't see the benefit financially to our taxpayers in Parsippany. So keep the good work. Please continue to keep us informed, and I do plan on attending that meeting as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
The paperwork
Is there paperwork that went this way?
that was handed to us, it was passed down.
Yes, it's down here. You-
Yeah. He'd like it back when
Oh,
you're
yeah,
done with it.
okay, I didn't.
Just a
okay.
one-pager.
Is it Roy's? It's this gentleman's. Okay.
No, not
No,
not Roy's.
that's Roy's. We have Roy's down here. We don't
No,
have.
one of them is the other thing.
Oh, one, okay.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. That's his.
Oh, that's, oh.
Roy, if you could just give that.
This gentleman right there.
I don't think so.
Nicholas Homiak, Lake Hiawatha. I'm here because of what Mr. Inglesino, my friend, has said on several occasions, and I think it's misleading. He says in reference, when I bring up the Highlands Regional Master Plan, he uses the term on occasion, or it has been found to be unconstitutional.
No, I didn't say that.
Well, can you tell me what you, how you express?
Go ahead.
Parsippany didn't adopt a master plan for two reasons. Because they were misled by Governor Corzine under the impression that their COA obligation would be less. But apparently that was the reason Parsippany decided to opt into the performance in 2010. And apparently that COA, which is totally separate than the Highlands Master Plan, is one element because it's the responsibility of all municipalities. So that was the only reason Parsippany opted in. I find that sad. And the other reason was Parsippany did not wish to amend its wastewater management plan. Now, in order to conform, the town would need to prepare an updated wastewater management plan which restricts future creation or extension of store service based on land use capability zones, in short. But at the same time, planning zone or preservation zone, no wastewater management plan or amendment to an existing water quality management plan may be approved within the Highlands region without receiving from the Highlands Council a determination of consistency with the Highlands Master Plan. They call it a backdoor conformance. So what would be the problem, being that the Highlands Master Plan is not against developers? I know you're a developer's attorney. All they ask from the developer is when you do something, do it right. And you can develop in the preservation zone, but it's very strict. You can develop in the planning zone, but it has to be according to the regulations. So when you say in the context of it's unconstitutional, I believe you're not misleading me, but you may be misleading other people. So you can explain how you, because I got a whole bunch of things here that it's every time they tried to prove it was unconstitutional, they lost. The state attorney, the New Jersey Law Journal, like it goes on and on. It's every time somebody tries to say they're having their rights diminished by the Highlands Act, they're found wrong, that it's not unconstitutional, it's scientifically sound and legally sound. So if you can explain what you mean when you say found unconstitutional, I'd appreciate it.
Are you finished? Thank you, Mr. Hornback. First of all, I thank you for the book that you gave me. I'm going to read it, and I look forward to it. I'm sorry that you interpreted something I said as saying that the Highlands Act was found unconstitutional, because I didn't say that, and the Highlands Act is not unconstitutional. In fact, as you just pointed out, it's withstood constitutional challenge on several occasions. So the Highlands Act is clearly constitutional under the New Jersey State Constitution. No question about that. What I indicated previously is that, and by the way, the resolutions that were passed by the governing body at that time are available, and I think do a very good job of spelling out in the whereas clauses the various reasons why the council took the action that it did. So I'll just quickly summarize my recollection of those resolutions. The council had initially opted in to commence the Highlands conformance process some years ago, in part because at that time Governor Corzine had said that there would be a reward for towns who opted into the Highlands, and that reward would be that your affordable housing obligation would be less than it otherwise would be. And so Parsippany and many other towns decided to commence the conformance process, in whole or in part due to that incentive by the state. Many towns were always reluctant to conform with the Highlands, not because they don't treasure the environment, not because they're anti-environment, but because there's always been a concern, which I think is well-founded, that over time municipalities will lose control of their own destinies, that they would lose control of their ability to zone, plan, and approve, because over time the concern has always been that the Highlands Council would get more and more powerful and begin to usurp local control, not from a planning perspective, but from an approval perspective. What happened was, when those regulations were found unconstitutional, and Parsippany was faced with another challenge, which was amending the wastewater management plan in order to find a permanent solution to the failed sewer pipe over in the what section?
Skyview.
Skyview. That it found that it really needed, in order to amend the wastewater management plan and to streamline that process and make it less cumbersome, it was in Parsippany's interest to opt out of the Highlands, so that that amendment process could take place, as I say, in a more streamlined, more efficient manner. So, and that's, I think, the primary reason why, and again, it's spelled out in the resolutions, why the town decided to opt out of the Highlands. So, I mean, that's what I had said over time. I apologize if there was some misunderstanding, but I hope that clarifies things.
I just want to hand out something. Mike, please share with the men who didn't make it. Bob, I'm going to ask you to read this into the record. Oh, yeah. Papataccio, 182 Hawkins Avenue. First, I've asked this question 3 times in the last 3 weeks. The Gulf investigation, the sewer investigation, the status of it, are they being handled by the Morris County Prosecutor's Office? If not, who are they being handled by? I've asked for the status of the police and the police chief's contracts. The letter I just gave to you, it's an inter-office memorandum regarding computer files. I received this when I attended Mr. Karifi's court hearing the other day, and I'd like you to look over it and see that these measures have been in place for a long time. It's dated from 2004. It's called Computer File Cleanup. Rob, I just wish you'd read that into the record when I'm done, because I just don't want to take up my time. Otherwise, I would read it.
Well, that was staged.
That wasn't staged at all.
It's your time. Why would he read your time into the record?
Because I don't have the time, Jamie. Captain Karifi, permit to carry a concealed weapon. Excuse me. Would you please ask the mayor to refrain? I got all the time in the world, Mayor.
Go ahead.
I stopped the clock.
Captain Karifi, his permit to carry a concealed weapon was granted last Thursday. And it was granted by Judge Otto after he received a written statement from Chief Phillips saying that Mr. Karifi retired in good standing and thus submitted the paperwork. And thus, this is the Morris County prosecutor.
Chief Phillips has now determined that he is satisfied that Mr. Karifi retired in good standing. He signed the letter, the part 2 of the form, and I believe the permit should be issued to Mr. Karifi.
Now I ask you, how can administrative charges be filed against Captain Karifi if he retired in good standing? As per Chief Phillips. Is Chief Phillips going to drop those charges now? I have no idea. Captain Karifi, I read all articles, in the Daily Record has asked for an open hearing regarding this administrative charges. If these administrative charges are not going to be dropped, will it be an open meeting? Because the public has a right to see how their tax dollars are being spent. Mike, you're the most senior member and the most experienced member of this council. And it really shocks me that you have not been really on top of this. It really does. It's a nightmare. We need to put an end to it. You got to start doing what's right for the taxpayers. Not doing what we want to do and sticking by for reasons that are unexplained, for reasons that we flip-flop in questioning. What we need to do is to have somebody check into this entire matter, because almost everything that has been filed against Mr. Karifi, he has won. How much more do we want to waste the taxpayers' money? Look into the results of these lawsuits. Look at the settlements. Look at what's being said. Do some due diligence, people. We need to stop this. It's getting outrageous.
Since you mentioned my name,
Let her vote, please, Mike. Let her finish.
Okay. And I am mentioning your name, Mike, only because, like I said, I have respected you. I do respect you. But what I don't understand is how something that has been going on for so long can go by and nobody try to rectify the situation. Nobody. You as a senior member should be doing that for us.
30 seconds.
Okay, Rob, would you read that for me into the record? Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Council
To
President.
let everybody know what's on the letter, basically.
It's an inter-office memo to all computer users from Earl Hoffner dated May 6, 2004 for computer file cleanup. Am I permitted to read this into the record or just copy it into the record?
Read it into the record.
I mean, if you want to read it into the record, read it into the record.
Someone can pass me a copy.
Here you go.
Everybody has a copy of it? It says the files and folders on the computer servers have grown excessive size and require cleanup. Please review your computer files and your directories and remove any inactive or unnecessary files. This includes any files saved on a shared drive. If you need to save files for historical purposes, they may be copied to your local C drive, diskettes, or CDs. If need be, the files may be printed out and saved as hard copies. Further, the shared drive should only be for temporary storage of files that are being passed or shared to other users. However, files are actively being used and amongst other users not to be removed. To create a clean start, I will delete all files on the shared drive on May 24, 2004, unless I have notified prior to the date regarding specific files that are active or shared use. It's a lot to read here. Just if we can just put it back into the record.
Yeah. And by the way, just 2 points as to that memo. Number one is the memo, which was written back in 2004, is completely contrary to New Jersey law with respect to the archiving of public information. That's number one. Number two is that the policies were changed. The policy was changed, and I have the information in my office and at the next council meeting, I will specifically address the issue of how the policies were specifically changed and how Mr. Karifi, who you defend, signed his name to acknowledge the new policies. So this memo is not first of all, it's not legal, and second of all, it is not representative of what the policies in the township and specifically in the police department have been for many years. So his memo is just, it's illegal and it's antiquated and it's obsolete.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I didn't finish this.
The other point is with regard to the issue of good standing. I would also, comment. It's my understanding that the chief also submitted a letter to the court, and what you're seeing here is a pattern, and the pattern is that, until there is a determination made, either in the civil case or in an administrative case, a determination is made. There's no basis to conclude for a gun permit purpose that Mr. Karifi didn't retire in good standing. The chief submitted a letter to the court indicating that his signature on the application or on the permit was based on the advice of counsel and also subject to the letter that he submitted to the court. The court also made a point of saying that this was just a gun permit case and it not representative of any other proceeding that may be occurring. So what's happened here is that while the township has not received all of the information that it's entitled to receive under court orders to be able to proceed with the civil case and with the administrative hearing, that inability to receive that information has delayed the adjudication of the question of whether or not there was a retirement in good standing. The township has maintained very strongly that there is an enormity of evidence, as indicated by the Aurora reports, as to what Mr. Karifi did, which I don't need to regurgitate here. And so, frankly, as gun permits or pension hearings or things come up, there's no basis to conclude that he didn't retire in good standing because there has been no adjudication of the allegations made by the township. And so it's our hope, frankly, from the township's perspective, that we can get to the point where those adjudications are made, so that all of these questions, can be answered. And it just needs to go through the process.
I have a question for you. This memo, though, you're saying that this memo that went out town-wide to all employees in 2004 is an illegal memo?
What I'm saying is it contradicts New Jersey law, and I will outline that for you at the next council meeting because we looked into that question. And what I'm saying to you is that memo is contrary to state law, and it was contrary to state law at the time. What I'm also saying is that the policy of the township and of the police department was specifically changed in years subsequent to that memo, and that all township employees and police officers, including Mr. Karifi, signed a piece of paper acknowledging their receipt and understanding of the policy. So that memo is really worthless, so I want to make that point. I will be able to report more specifically on that at the next council meeting. I didn't realize that that was going to be sort of sprung up.
Mayor, this is just a suggestion because I'm getting more confused in regards to the legal jargon here. Is that our department at one time, when I did work for the police department, we had an accreditation program in place, where obviously there was very stringent policies and procedures in place, and obviously it was a highly recognized agency, which I did my dissertation on, which makes sure that a police department is abiding by all the rules and regulations, policies, procedures, all Attorney General guidelines, 2C, traffic, the whole 9 yards. And it seems to me, and I got to look at this honestly on face value now, is that we're being told that you have 7 charges being sustained against an officer, okay? If I was the internal affairs officer working that case and I had to go in front of a judge. I don't know why the chief, in any way, shape, or form, if you're saying that you have 7 charges sustained against somebody, why he would even sign off on that permit. So, to me, I don't care how you cut the pie here, you don't retire in good standings. So I have a concern about that. And then in regards to the memo, I was working at the police department at the time in regards to that, and actually, this is the first that I actually saw this memo here. I had heard about it, but actually seen it. And what I want to know is, John, this is to you, and this is not to insult you at all, is the policies in place, is this policies that we had in the police department, or is this township policies that were handed out?
As I indicated a moment ago, it was both.
It was both. So there's policies.
There's 2 separate policies.
All right.
Mr. Valori, I'll address them in more detail at the next council meeting.
Okay.
Frankly, this was sprung on me, so
Okay.
please afford me
Okay.
the opportunity
I'm
to...
just
I
asking-
think you can
hold on,
just
let me
let
ask-
the council know.
Let me ask the mayor. Mayor, is there policies in place in regards to data handling? Because the reason why I'm saying this is that when I came on board last year, we knew there was a problem with the hard drive where it kept overriding itself and data is not being saved. So if we go back and say this is an illegal memo, so from
This is an illegal memo. What it said is that the memo,
It's an
as it
outdated
relates to
memo. It's
record
Okay.
retention, is contrary to what New Jersey law says. And I think that I will address the issues more specifically at the next council meeting.
Yeah, I'll talk to the mayor. But the reality is, we have a memo that was in place. Was the chief aware of this memo at all?
The memo was not in place, Mr. Valori.
Mr. Gonzalez, I'm not talking to you.
You're
I'm talking to
misstating the
mayor.
facts.
I'm talking to the mayor.
The memo was not in place.
I am talking to the mayor, I'm not talking to you.
I can't
I'm not
answer-
trying to-
No, I can't answer the question because this memo I've never seen, and the fact of the matter is that there are policies and procedures in place with regards to what transpired. That's all I can really answer right now.
Okay, so are they new updated policy procedures in place? Because the reason why I'm saying this is, a year ago, when I had asked this, there wasn't policies and procedures in place.
That's not true.
I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to the mayor,
Oh, true.
okay?
That isn't true.
I know you don't like it when I provide answers, but
Okay.
what you said is factually not true.
Okay, so is this in the handbook of the township, or is this in the police department's policies and procedures?
What I'll do is I'll get you the information for next week.
All right, because the only reason I'm asking is,
I don't have it.
and obviously the BA is aware of it, Ms. Salmon, is that I was asking for the policies and procedures of the police department, because that was one thing I wanted to find out, if in fact there were policies on this. And I never got a copy of them. All I got was the rules and regulations.
I have
So-
all the information. You'll have
I
it next
think
week.
you were also notified that you could have, you could get, what was it?
What?
Table of organization.
I never got that.
Yeah, well, you're going to get it.
Okay, I'm still waiting. And we'll go on that about the contract,
I'm
okay?
assuming you're going to get that.
Okay, 6 months now, go
I
on.
know. Well, things happen in 7, I guess. No, I'm
Oh,
kidding.
okay.
You're
But
definitely going to get that.
The only thing I got
But
from
the policy
the
and
chief-
procedures, if I can quite remember, and I didn't speak to you, I think it was the BA or maybe somebody else, told you, though, policy and procedures, you would not be able to get at that moment. So.
And just to let you know-
if I'm right, I mean, you verified that.
I've done research on other police departments, and they've
Right.
given the policy
Oh,
and
you were-
procedures
oh,
without
yeah, I
issue.
know, I put you there.
Okay, no problem. So, John, now getting back to you, so you'll give us all the information. Is there any reason why I have to wait till next council meeting? Can we get it within this week? The next council meeting is a month away.
I'll report on it at the next council meeting, Mr. Valori, and
All
you'll
right.
see that memo is
Okay.
not worth the paper it's written on.
Okay,
Mayor,
so it was written by, obviously, Mayor Letts here.
Mayor, I thought that we had agreed that if a resident got up and started talking about that case, that we weren't going to discuss.
I agree with you
any of it.
100%. But when that's my point, and that's what
Well,
I said.
I think
to
you need to tell Mr. Inglesino
Well,
to
no,
just
the point is
let
this,
it go.
But here's the point, and I said this to you. I know it's sensitive, but if a resident gets up, and I even said that, we're going to respond. I wish the resident would just say, listen, let it play out in the courts. I understand, blah, blah, blah. And I think that was answered fairly this night today. I think Ms. Patacci was,
But Mr. Inglesino seems to give his opinion, and
well,
it's
because
on
it
it's
wasn't giving his
one-sided.
opinion.
So,
No, you see, but
well,
Councilman-
it's true. If you're
But,
sitting
Councilman,
out
here's
here,
what-
it
well,
seems.
here's what I can say, Councilman, and if you don't want it to be heard in the public, I couldn't agree with you more. I would like that, but if a member of the public comes up, which we can't stop,
Correct.
so,
Right, but I'm just trying to save the township from further
Well, the
litigation.
township, I think, will be fine with all this. I think the problem is this, that now, I wasn't going to ask any questions on it. Mr. Valori asked a question about the memo. So, and asked me questions, and it all pertains back to the case. So, if we want to refrain, we got to refrain together. That's really what it comes down to, gentlemen. I agree. I want to have town business, and that's it.
Well, this is town business, and I will certainly, everything that I will say is out in the public domain. There's nothing that I'm going to say that isn't already in filed publicly available court papers. And if the public record is not to some's liking, I can't help that. But by the same token, when misinformation is provided or questions are asked, I have an obligation to.
But Mr. Inglesino, aren't you conflicted out of the case? So how can you make any public statement about the case?
I'm not conflicted out of the case.
Okay.
Here's what I can make a recommendation, if I may.
Let's just move on.
On this matter, Council President Griefe, and I just think this is for your own good as well, because if, you are conflicted as well. On this matter, maybe the
agree.
Council Vice President should really take over when it comes to this one matter. That's all I'm saying, in all fairness. He should take the meeting over, and not the meeting over, just that portion of it when it comes to this case.
All right, so I just want to address one thing here. Okay, we do have a 2004 memo. So obviously, we were not part of the government at the time when this, were you a councilman at this time, 2004?
I was a councilman.
So you were part of this memo then, so.
Well, I didn't see
in
it.
It wasn't issued by the council.
So
I didn't see the memo.
So my point is this.
This was administrative. didn't
Okay,
the
so
council?
my point is this, Mayor, is then if actually data was destroyed from back in 2004 based on this guidance, so was this guidance that was not proper guidance given? That's what I'm asking you.
I don't know.
You have it-
I'd have to speak to Mayor Litz.
Well, I just, maybe, our township attorney, I mean, if you have a memo that's given from obviously Earl Hofker, and it's CC to the mayor and Mr. Strechay, so if there was incidents of this happening back in 2004 and prior to that, is there any issues concerning that? Is there any liabilities concerning that?
I don't even know what you're asking, Mr. Valori, but I think
What
the
is it that-
subject. I think the subject's been exhausted as far as I'm
It's not exhausted.
concerned.
The reason I'm just asking you is, there's a memo in 2004. So I just want to know, you said on the record it's not a legal memo.
No, it's
So
not what I said.
Okay, John. So my point is, if this did occur from 2004 to whatever date, if it's 5 years, 6 years, what issues are going to be corrected in regards to if there was information that was obviously exposed or destroyed? Or is that a concern of anybody here? I guess
Valori,
not.
can't
Okay.
go back 10 years ago.
All right, anyone else?
Am I allowed now to respond to Pat Patacha's question, which was what, about a half hour ago, Pat? Going back, Pat, the original James Carriffy litigation was not being promoted to deputy chief, and that mushroomed into other things. Now, the council, the mayor, we cannot get involved in even discussions with litigation, much less interfere with the litigation. And then when that mushroomed into an investigation, again, we should not be interfering with an investigation until it runs its course. That's the reason I tried last month to have Aurora come here, tell us who they are, what their qualifications are, and what they've been doing all this time, and justify their charges. But we didn't get to that point, so it's still open. I tried to bring it to a head so we can, how long is this going to take? How long is this going to go on? These are all questions, legitimate questions we could have asked Aurora if we had met with them last week. Otherwise, it's got to take its course. We can't stop an investigation. It's not ethical to do that.
Who's stopping an investigation?
No.
Well, I don't know what you're asking me, what I could have done. I mean, litigation and investigations have to run their course. We can't stop them if someone's found not guilty.
By the way, Mr. DePiro, if you would have read the initial civil suit, it was not just the promotion. There were 6 or 7 other issues that were involved.
Okay.
Just to let you know.
Either way, they were litigation, so we could not be involved in them.
Right, true.
Even now, that's still ongoing, that litigation.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one else come forward, entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion.
Motion made by Mr. Stanton, seconded by Mr. Valori. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Paluso?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes.
Mr. Valori?
Yes.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes. Mr. Stanton.
Consent agenda. Be it resolved, all items listed with an asterisk are considered to be routine, non-controversial by the Township Council, be approved by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion on these items unless the council member so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda, considered in its normal sequence on the agenda.
Second.
I have a question on 2015-071, the transfer of funds.
What is it?
I see that we're transferring $67,944 into legal for Mr. Inglesino's law firm. Are we going to be able to see any bills or see what that work is for?
You have it all
I mean, it's another another $67,000 that we're transferring into legal.
That will be the end for the 2014. I believe those bills have been opened before. You're more than welcome to them. Briefly, these bills have been scrutinized ad nauseum, quite frankly. We've taken off those taxes that we had paid. Do you remember the sales tax? That was taken off. A previous Aurora bill, expert report, was taken off. And some other credits to get us down to that kind of number, the exact amount that's due. These transfers have to be done by the end of March. We cannot pay, and that will be the end for 2014. I gave you the exact amount of money that we owe, and that's it.
Break it down.
Oh, all right.
You need to do that. That's what he's asking.
Of these 2 months, $14,000 are for Oprah alone. That's how many Oprahs we get on a monthly basis. Karifi's case is $28,613, and the garbage issue with the apartment alone was almost another $13,000, and that's the basic breakdown of that. Less all the credits and some of the other utility bills, it comes down to $67,944.
So these are bills we received at the end of the year,
Well, yes.
prior to 2015.
Well,
and now
they're for 2000.
Work that was done in 2014.
Correct, exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
And this is it.
this is it.
I just want to pick up on what you were asking about. Just for the record, I did speak to the CMFO, and I had similar questions to a lot of the transfers. Just my overall concern was I thought the Finance Committee was going to meet and talk about financial matters of this nature and report back to all the councilmen so we would know between the mayor and the council exactly what's going on. So can anybody chime in on this? Was this actually done through the Finance Committee? So there is limited questions?
Council Vice President, I tried to reach out to Ann today. Unfortunately, she must have been busy. I saw that on the agenda, so I made an attempt to obviously
Yes.
inquire about it.
I'll just say that this is a standard operating procedures. I think the last time we did a transfer, we didn't explain in detail what it was for. This time we did, and these couple of small transfers, quite frankly, are recommended by the auditor as well, to get these couple of things in for the end of the year.
Here's what I can recommend, because you can't have a meeting for every transfer. What I can do is call either the council president or on the committee, and then go over it with you prior to the transfers, any transfers in the future. Because I can't imagine having a meeting that's in a transfer.
Now, I'm going to smile at both you guys, all three at the end here.
But here's the point. And the point is this: we're going to have finance committee meetings with regards to the budget. So that would, Councilman, what we're going to have. I mean, the budget process on our end is done.
Mayor, listen, with all due respect,
Okay.
if there was $250,000 that was basically, we voted on, that we were initially told on this particular matter, I don't want to say the person's name, we were conflicted out. So on that vote, on that $250,000 to be paid, obviously, to those fees, it would have been nice if honesty was the best policy and we would have known that. So now you tell us about your doubts of this $60-some thousand where these folks weren't being paid. I think that we should get the opportunity to sit down and actually look at those bills. And you're right, moving forward, we have a budget, and it's probably going to be a very slow process because a lot of trust has to be built in with that process. So again, we're not saying that, obviously, we don't want to work with you, but the reality is we want to make sure that the money is being spent properly. That's all. So it's nothing personal against you.
No, I'm not taking it personal, and I just want to retract. I mean, one word. There's no dishonesty here, Councilman.
I didn't say dishonesty.
No, you said dishonesty, and there's none. And I said it just about 5 minutes ago. We need to work together now.
Yeah.
There's no doubt, and that's, I have to tell you, that's what the residents want us to do, to work together.
And I think they want to see that we're making sure that the money is being spent properly.
I agree. You're absolutely correct.
Speaking about the budget, at what point are we going to set dates for budget meetings?
Well, here's what we're going to, tell me if I'm out of line, Mayor.
I know.
First, I'm going to meet with the Finance Committee. We'll meet with all the, each department. We'll bundle a whole bunch of departments together to meet. And once we're done, I think we can start setting up the meetings. We should go pretty quick with it.
All right.
Are we going to start meeting before March is over?
Probably not, beginning of April.
Yeah.
Beginning of April?
Yeah, because,
the budget's already late.
one of the reasons.
I'll just late every year, Mr. Russo.
No, well.
We don't even have the numbers from the state yet.
That's not the reason. One of the things, as you remember, when you supported Ann coming to to Parsippany as our finance director, what we talked about was some of the things that she had set up in Morristown. It's taking us a little while to get that set up. So, we want to really hit the pavement running with this. I can assure you, you will find very detailed information, very well documented. And what we also are working on, somewhat different, is the allocations of some of the funding that goes out. And it's a very involved because we have to get down into it. When I'm referring to,
I have no doubt, but that's not the purpose for my question.
No.
The purpose for my question is.
we'll be meeting early in April.
Dates fill in quickly.
Yes.
When you're talking about.
And I would like to have a
getting into April
Saturday
now,
meeting if
dates
that's
fill
okay.
in quickly, and the sooner we can lock in dates, we can push other things around them.
All right, I'll be happy to.
Otherwise, how many guys, this one can't make this day, this one can't make this day,
Okay.
and then we go on and on.
What we'll do is we'll put some dates together
Mayor, I just
and.
want to
That's
So-
good, that's
Yes,
good.
go ahead.
Wait, I just want to, so Ann or
Yeah.
Ellen, so after these transfers, then all bills for 2014 were done?
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to pick up on the Finance Committee. I know there's been several Finance Committees that have met and had meetings, but as a council, unless any of the councilmen can correct me, I have not seen any minutes from these meetings. Are minutes being taken at these Finance Committee meetings? So
No.
council
No, this
know
is-
what's
the-
going on?
We're not taking minutes for the meeting. This is a meeting between the mayor and the two council individuals that are on the committee.
Well, there are 5 councilmen here, and we're in
And
the
that would
dark
be
as to
that.
what's
I'm
going
not
on.
I'm not having minutes taken.
I think what we had proposed was that we would have the Finance Committee meetings, and then
Right, we can do
the
that.
two of us would come back and
Right, that's
discuss
exactly
it
it. Right.
at our budget meetings and
That's exactly
give
what it
reasonings for different things.
My concern is that there's transparency, because I know there's been several meetings in finance between the mayor and councilmen.
Well, that's
There's
why
5
we-
councilmen here,
that's
and-
why we have the-
And it's not been disclosed to me.
That's why we have the
exactly what's
finance committee, and then we come out to the open public
And Mayor,
to discuss what we.
no, I don't want to interrupt you guys.
Can
Are you
I-
two done? Can I just, and, you're there with the mayor now, and I know that we had on many occasions, and this is a very large part of our budget. I know, we're concerned in regards to the police department, that they're properly staffed, that we could resolve their contract, but you know as well as I know, in closed session, we're waiting to get from the chief a table of organization in regards to how we're going to budget the manpower. We got it?
Got it.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm not
Got
leaving here
it.
tonight
You're
without
gonna
it.
What you're getting now is the existing table of organization of 94 sworn officers, and then the recommendation of the 113. It has a cover sheet, and should be.
And so we're going to discuss this next meeting? this information?
I wouldn't think at a council meeting, but this is a budget,
Okay.
budget, but I wanted to give it to you earlier.
Okay.
And we wanted to make sure it was accurate.
So, Council President, what we could do is, I'll work around your dates, because So, Council President, what we can do is work, I know your time schedule is a little different than mine. I can work around the dates that you can meet.
Yeah, we can set up meetings.
Yeah.
Set up. Well, we're just waiting to hear
Right. Would
from
anybody
you
be-
guys
Yes.
on when we
ask
can
a
meet.
question now that we're all here sitting? Does anybody be opposed to one Saturday? Do you know how much work we
For,
do?
what, for
For
budget meeting?
hearing, because-
Well, yeah, we'd have, it's going to depend on everybody's.
Okay.
yeah.
That's why I was suggesting the sooner you get
Yeah.
the dates, the better.
All right, if I throw out a couple of Saturdays, as you were saying,
It
Brett?
just depends on dates.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Just
yeah,
real
but
quick
let's
on
get them-
something that
let's get
Rob
them-
brought
yeah.
up.
Yeah.
How about we do this?
One sec. We
Yes.
had a budget meeting last year with the police.
Yes.
And I know ahead of time there was a finance meeting with
Yes.
President Karifi and Valori. Well, I guess there was a decision and agreement made, came out here and it went on the record, and I got to tell you, 3 of us that were not involved look like idiots. So if
No,
we're
we're
going to
not.
do it
No,
like
no,
that,
no, it's not going to be that way. It's going to
I
be...
mean, we need to know what's going on
need to
before
see
it comes
minutes.
out here.
Yeah, what happens with the Finance Committee, they'll come out, and then the President and they'll explain to you what we discussed.
Okay, because I know last year, I think it was the overage, there was an agreement made.
We didn't have a Finance Committee meeting last year.
No, well, then I guess it was just a private meeting.
Yeah, we didn't
with
have
the
a finance
three.
committee.
Came out here, and the 3 of us had no idea what was going on.
That had to do with,
It was over, I
A while
remember it was on the
Right,
overage when the guy
right.
retired.
Brian, the most important thing is at a finance committee aside, when we're doing the budget, it's everybody, all hands on deck, because there's so
Remember
much
the consent
discussed.
agenda.
Yeah, so much that needs to be discussed. So in deference to Councilman Councilman Michael and the council president, I'm going to put some dates together, Mayor, and we'll send them out and see what we get.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're
All right,
in the
back
middle of a roll
to,
call. We'll start with roll
yes,
call.
okay, roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
Mr. Valori,
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. Mr. Paluso?
Ordinance 2015:03, an ordinance establishing hourly wage ranges for blue-collar supervisor employees of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, 2015-2015. Is there a typo there?
Like one.
Sounded like one.
That sounds like it.
Okay, be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at the meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on March 17, 2015, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on April 21st, 2015, at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, in which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise that said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Paluso, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
Mr. Valori,
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. Just going back for a second.
Yeah, Mr. Counselor, if I can, frankly, it just happened so quickly. My advice to Mr. Valori and Mr. Karifi is that they should probably have abstained on the transfer resolution. It would still have three votes, so it would pass. But just for conflicts reasons, and I know that they wanted to vote on the transfer resolutions. They want to make sure that the bills of the town are paid. There's no question about that, and that should be on the record. No, you are not. But that
So it's going on the record.
yeah, it just makes the record cleaner and just
Mr. Iglesino, why they conflicted out?
because of because some of it involved
Some of the transfer funds.
case, and they were combined together. So I understand that, and that's why I think it's important to put on the record that the record should reflect that they want the bills of the town to be paid. That's not the reason.
Couldn't the illegal expense that they're conflicted out be removed from resolution and separated? So their vote can still count towards those transfers?
It's not necessary.
Well, it's not
We have-
necessary
we have
because
three
it passed,
votes.
and I think that the votes were taken. but-
You're fine with three?
Yeah, and the resolution should, I just want the record to be clear that I don't think that Councilman Valori and Karifi didn't intend to pay the bills of the town, so I want that to be clear.
Okay, and Mr. Stan's not conflicted out?
No.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Valori?
Okay. Ordinance 2015:03, 04. Correction, ordinance 2015:04. An ordinance amending ordinance 2014:17 entitled An Ordinance Establishing White-Collar Salary Ranges for the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills. Be it resolved that the above ordinance is introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading in a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on March 17, 2015, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on April 21st, 2015 at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, in which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise an ordinance with a notice of introduction, therefore being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Valori, seconded by Mr. Paluso. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Paluso?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes.
Mr. Valori?
Yes.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes. Mr. DePiero?
Ordinance 2015:05, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, to amend and supplement Chapter 290 entitled Parks, Recreation Areas, and Public Lands, Article 1 of the Code of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on March 17, 2015, and that said ordinance be further considered for a second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on April 21st, 2015 at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereon being published in the official newspaper according to law.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Stanton. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Paluso?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes.
Mr. Valori?
Yes.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes. Mr. Paluso?
Ordinance 2015:06, an ordinance of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, adopting the redevelopment plan for property identified as Block 136, Lot 43.3, in the township in accordance with the local redevelopment and housing law, NJSA 40A:112A-1. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on March 17, 2015, and that the said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at the meeting held on April 21st, 2015 at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time or as soon thereafter as the matter be reached at the municipal building in said township, in which all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve.
Motion made by Mr. Paluso,
Second.
seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call.
Well, I have a question first. Mr. Valori, you're on the planning board. Do you just happen to recall where this redevelopment plan is for?
I do, Mr. DePiero. This is concerning the property that the council had declared in need of redevelopment some time ago. There's a large...
What address? Where, what part of...
It's on there. It's off of Cherry Hill Road.
Oh, Cherry Hill, okay. I know which one it
There's
is.
a large corporate user who's
Okay.
lined up. So this will be referred to the planning board immediately by law. They'll make a finding of consistency with the master plan, and we anticipate it'll be adopted next month. And we'll probably bring Mr. Snikes in to make a little bit of a public
I know we
presentation.
just, some of us haven't memorized all the lot and block numbers in town, you know, and sometimes it's good to just say Cherry Hill Road, so,
Right.
you know, then I would know which one we're talking about.
Good.
I vote yes.
Mr. Paluso?
I already spoke to Mr. Inglesino having a similar question, and he has agreed to review the agreement with them as well prior to this, so I vote yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes.
Mr. Valori?
Yes.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes. Mr. Inglesino, I just have a quick question for you. Getting back to the thing that myself and Mr. Valori are conflicted out of, how is Mr. Stanton not conflicted out if he's conflicted out of everything else? Every other meeting we have.
He's really not, and I'm happy to talk to you about that offline.
Ready?
Yes.
Or 2015-074, resolution authorizing the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills to enter into an agreement for participation in a cooperative pricing system with the County of Bergen for the purchase of goods and services.
Motion by Mr. Stanton. Motion made, seconded by Mr. Paluso. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Paluso?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes.
Mr. Valori?
Yes.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes. This time, entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Make a motion.
Motion made by Mr. Stanton.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Valori. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Paluso?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton? Mr. Valori?
Yes.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes. Good night, everyone. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
John, enjoy your St. Patrick's Day.